Live
Live
streaming is
Shinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat. So we're going to start our discussions, and let me say the page. What is that? Okay, Kalyana Dushavakya. So let me also say the page with you so that you can have access to the text. Okay, now you can have a look at this. No, not this one. Give me a little time. I shared the wrong page. Uh, Give me 1 second. Yeah, this one. So we were discussing in the last session the basic difference in approach, the epistemological approach, how we know the methods of knowledge. It's a very critical thing, how we arrive at a conclusion. Why this whole sansara, which is actually real to the naked eyes and to all our scientific investigations, this whole phenomenal world which is spread across the horizon in front of our eyes, which we experience, we engage with, Vedanta says is not real. It's not ultimately real. Immanuel Kant in the Western philosophy also draws a line between phenomena and noumena. So there are two realities. There's a mention of it. The Buddhists also talk about the Vyavaharika Satya and the Paramarthika Satya. The Vedantians similarly, in fact, they have not just two layers, but three layers in which whatever we experience appears in our understanding. One which we experience when we are dreaming or when we are seeing something by mistake. Like we see a snake in a rope. Then, with a bit of analysis, we are able to analyze no, this is a rope, this is not a snake. In the dream, we see a lot of things. When we wake up, we don't consider that to be real. That's called prativhasika. It's just an illusory appearance. It's focused, it's pratiti pradhana. It's only focused on the experience of that reality. When you investigate, it gets refuted, it gets rejected. It cannot stand the test of logic and experiment and observation. Then we have, during the waking state, Jagrata Avastha, we see this whole sansara and we experience it. And then that also doesn't stand the test of logic and analysis and Shruti Pramana, according to Vedanta, ultimately, that also gets refuted or rejected. It gets annulled. What remains in the end is that luminous, pure consciousness where all dualities get dissolved. That is what we refer to as Brahman, as the ultimate truth. And at that level of ultimate truth, it's not something which you can capture in a sentence, a subject and predicate and stuff like that. It's pure consciousness. It is pure reality, which is the observer of all observations. It is the observer behind all observations. It is that universal witness thing on which everything else gets reflected. Now, why are we discussing this? We are discussing it now to make sense of how different levels of material realities have appeared. To start with, first you have the Akasha, the sky. Out of sky, what appears is air or wind. And out of air, what appears is fire. Out of fire, what appears is water. And out of water, what appears is earth. It reminds us of the kind of evolution that we have studied in our science that you had. The earth was a gaseous ball, and after some time, suddenly, can you So you have a gaseous state, and suddenly there's ice age. It is fiery, right? So let's imagine we go two steps earlier. What we have? We would have akasha, first space, then air, then it's a gaseous fireball, fire, and then ice, water, and then earth, then life and creation, everything. Very slowly they come into picture. This we have to understand without nullifying our theory about this reality being monistic, non differentiated, one unified conscious reality. We have to have some philosophical explanation as to why it is so. And why it is so is being explained now. And that's what we are going to do today. We have already done it. Now, this Akasha doesn't have any, it has a Swadharma, that is that Sabdagunakam Akasha. That, it is a platform for carrying sound waves. And then the Nyayikas, the Nyaya philosophers, there's a particular philosophical tradition in India who say that everywhere you have Satta Guna Karma, these three universal qualities or attributes, and Satta, isness, is one of the primary qualities of Akasha. All Dravyas, they are Navadravyas. And the Panchabhutas are the five Dravyas, and they will add another four. So all these, even gunas, the qualities exist. There is a quality, there is blue color, there is love. Wherever there is comes, that is Satta Dharma. What Vedanta is trying to explain to us, you are twisting and inverting the reality. The truth of the matter is that Satta Dharma is the primary foundation of everything else. Satta Dharma is not a quality which you can attribute to Akasha. It's the opposite. The Brahman is what you would associate with Satta Dharma, and Brahman is one in which this Akasha Tattva, which appears as an independent reality, is kind of attributed to. It's an appearance on that primary substratum or that platform called the Brahman, called pure consciousness. And now what happens? There is a tadatmya, non-differentiated similarity between Akasha and Brahman. As we are giving the example in the last class, you are in a book fair, and the book fair, there's a girl who is wearing a t-shirt and jeans, or a kurti and jeans or whatever, and she's walking. And her hair color, hairstyle is very similar to your daughter. And suddenly you are a little bothered because she has got examinations ahead, or she has got some assignment to submit. So immediately you go close and say, "What are you doing here?" And she turns back and says, "Uncle, what happened?" But she's not your daughter. First, what did you do? She is someone else's daughter. Her name is not your daughter's name. First, you had a similarity which you accepted for a fact. There is dissimilarity. She's a different individual. That happens first. And then you superimpose all the qualities of your daughter on this stranger who is not your daughter. And then you confuse her to be your daughter. That is how first the truth is covered up, and then there is a new reality or new description which is superimposed on which exists. So this is the interesting part of it. Okay, so this is the interesting part of it that we have to keep in our minds, because we'll go till earth and how these qualities emerge, that we have already discussed in the previous class. The karana guna, the qualities of the causal element, shall be there in the consequence. Like the qualities of the father, the DNA gets transformed. And then, recently I read somewhere in the newspaper that in China, there was a Chinese couple and they had a little baby girl who was blue-eyed and she was blonde. And they were all surprised. How come she's there? Because father and mother both are Chinese, and they did a DNA test and they found, no, She is their biological daughter. Then they did a lot of research and they found out that one of the, I think one of the parents of this couple, two generations behind, was a Russian. That DNA information has suddenly become evident in this little baby girl. So she has got features of that great grandfather, whosoever it is, from mother or father side, and she starts looking like him. But remember this, the quality which appears in her is nothing new. That quality is inherited from one of the causal elements in that causal chain. So the satta dharma is something which we should rightfully associate with Brahman. Actually, Brahman is nothing but pure satta, pure sat chit ananda, that satta dharma. And then we are confusing it as if that's a quality of akasha. Akasha is a dharma attributed to Brahman. Akasha and the Brahman is dharmi. Like someone is a kind king. Kindness is a quality attributed to the king. Okay. Similarly, this akasatva is attributed to Brahman because that is how there is a twisted appearance of this pure consciousness, Sachidananda Swarupa, is akasha. That is the first vikara. It's a vivarta parinama. It appears as a parinama, but it's a vivarta, it's a projected reality. That is how we have looked at it. So let's look at the text and make sense of it. He's saying that we were looked at it. Yes. Ya sakti hi kalpayati vyomo sa sad vyomor abhinnatam apadya dharma dharmitvam vyatyena avakalpayet. Ya sakti hi. How does that happen? Vedanta says that there is a critical role attributed to Maya Sakti. Very critical role attributed to it. It's very interesting. Why? Because with the help of this Maya Shakti, this is a theoretical tool. It's not per se real. That's why we call it Anadi Avidya. It doesn't have a beginning. The snake which we see in the rope doesn't have a date of birth. Right? That is true. Ajnana doesn't have a beginning. It has an end. Otherwise, there'll be no moksha. We'll never get enlightenment. We shall never get liberated. Problems are always inherited. Inherited. They don't have a beginning. But problems are supposed to have an end, otherwise, our life is meaningless. We will not go anywhere, will not achieve anything. Some people say problems are not something which we can resolve, we can only manage them. Yeah, that's one pragmatic piece of advice. But the problem of ignorance has to have a logical conclusion, a resolution. Otherwise, there's no moksha, there's no liberation. Life is meaningless. Shastra says, no, there is a resolution. Darkness doesn't have a beginning, it has a resolution. When? Yeah, you bring a torchlight, you bring enlightenment, then the ignorance goes. Therefore, he's saying that Ya Sakti Vyomaha, with that Maya Sakti, with which we imagine this Akasha to be fundamentally real, it is an apparent phenomenal reality, not an absolute reality. We think it's an absolute reality. And therefore he's saying, Sa Sadivyomni Avinnata. There are two levels of inversion or confusion. What is the first level of confusion? Sadvyomni avinnatam kalpayet. Akasa, Brahman is Sad. Then you see the Akasa is no different from Brahman, it is Sat. Sadvyomni, Sadvyomnoho avinnatam. Sad and Vyoma, Sattadharma, right? That pure Sat, the Brahman, and Akasha. Sadvyomnoho avinnatam. They are one. First, you imagine that. Apadya. First, you have this hypothesis, you accept it. Dharma dharmitvam vyatyayena. Viparityena. In a very inverted way. Vyatyaya. It's an inverted way of looking at things. confusing X for Y and Y for X. Dharma dharmitvam. This Akasha is actually a dharma. Brahma is dharmi. That is the platform on which Akasha appears. We are inverting, saying Satta dharma is there in Akasha, which is pretty false. Therefore, he's saying dharma dharmitvam vyatyayena, in an inverted manner, avakalapayet. That is how we foolish people who are unable to see the presence, the luminosity, the light of Brahman, of the absolute reality, we give more importance to what appears as real, the Akas, Panchabhuta, Sansara, everything. They become much more important to us than the foundation on which all these are actually appearing. So, Ya Maya Sakti Vyoma Kalapayet, that Maya Sakti which makes this imagination real, possible, where Sati Aropayati. Sati means in seventh case, Sati means in Brahman. Sat, seventh case is Sati. Sati Aropayati. Sa eva Sakti. Sa eva Maya Sakti. Sad Vyamnoho. Sad and Vyamnoho. Abhinnatam tadatmyam apadya. First confusion, X and Y are same. Prathamam sampadya. First this tadatmya jnana is established as valid. Tayo eva anandaram vaiparityena. Then vikshepa can also happen. Right? So then vaiparityena dharma dharmitvam dharmasya akasasya dharmi bhavam cha avakalpayet. Akasa is a dharma. We superimpose it in the Brahman, and then we think Akasa and Brahman one and the same, and the Brahman quality is now being superimposed on Akasha. We are confusing the dharmi with the dharma. It's like sometimes what happens in someone's family, there are two brothers, okay? The elder brother is very quiet, very studious, spends his time in the laboratory or in the library. He's a writer, maybe he's a little poetic or a little artistic. The younger brother is a little muscular, he's good at sports, and then maybe he's very popular in the college, he's a leader kind of a thing. And then everybody thinks the elder brother is the younger brother and the younger brother is the elder brother. It happens in many places. You must have seen that. Similarly, we are confusing the consequence to be the cause and the cause to be a kind of a consequence. We are confusing the qualities of them. Ataha akasasya sad dharmitvam avagamyate. The satta dharma we are attributing to Akasa, and the confusion in fact is arising because of this particular there is a double inversion, right? If any of you have read a bit of social science, this Marxist philosophy, Karl Marx also talks about inversion of reality in his famous book called German Ideology. He says that why do we believe in God? He wrote his 11th thesis on Feuerbach. He says, Feuerbach writes about God is like this, that we project, because we are so helpless, we project all our best qualities onto something which doesn't exist, make him a most powerful person who has control over us. And that is their theory. Anti-spiritualism, but now there is a lot of research saying that Karl Marx was not necessarily anti-spiritual. But then he said that religion is the opium of the masses. He also said another thing, the heart of the heartless world, but that is kind of ignored by the traditional Marxist traditions. Now it's gaining a bit of importance. Coming back to our discussion in German ideology, what he says that there's a lot of inequality in society, but these inequalities, through ideological manipulation and a lot of theorizations, are kind of inverted. And then we talk about fraternity and equality and freedom. That is at the surface level of exchange. You see, everybody is free to choose to work in any company, but you are not free to actually choose how much wage you're going to get, right? Whether you're going to have a job or not have a job, you don't have the freedom to choose. But capitalism creates this illusion. That's what he says. But if you actually go deeper into him, he was taken many of his ideas from Hegel, and Hegel was, now there's a lot of research to show that he was heavily influenced also by Indian philosophers, particularly this idea about this inversion. I don't have enough textual evidence to say that this may have traveled from Indian philosophy to Karl Marx or communism, but I have this intuitive belief that a couple of things are appearing in Western philosophy, especially German philosophy, in a very big way, which have Indian roots. Or you can also trace it back to ancient Greek philosophy, but then that's another discussion. Coming back here, we are having double inversion. First, similarity is assumed to be real, and second, one quality is imposed on the other. And that is how akasa is supposed to have satta dharma. Why are we getting this complex philosophical explanation? Because it's very important for us to all the time stick to the truth that the foundational reality, all of us, everything that we see, everything that we talk about, is in fact that unified conscious reality. Then how do we make sense of these diversities and differences and complexities? So Vedanta says, I'm not denying all this to be real, but I'm just trying to explain to you these are phenomenal, confused to be ultimately real. Okay? So this very interesting, very nuanced, very sophisticated argument. So what happens is that Sattva dharma and Vyoma dharma or Akasha dharma. First, we have this Avinnata Jnana. One thing, wo bhi satya, ye bhi satya. And then Dharma Dharmitvam Vyatyena, we invert it. Okay? How this particular thing comes to our discussion? Because earlier there was this sentence, Akasa Asit. Akasa was there. What do you mean by Akasa Asit? Akasa was. Sky was. What does it mean? Akasha Satta Dharmavan Abhavat. Akasha had Satta Dharma. So the Satta, which is actually Dharmi, is converted to a Dharma and attributed to Akasha. So Akasa is Sattva Vishishta. Satta is one adjective associated with Akasa. No, that's actually the fundamental truth. That is the main subject. Then he's saying this starts with this Dharma Dharmi Bhava. The whole problem is that if Akasa is considered to be real, then first thing is Dharma Dharmi Bhava is one logical incongruence. The second one is Karasya Karana Dharmatvam. Karya is Akasha. It's a consequence. It's a product of Brahman. And then that isness is the Satta Dharma of the Brahman. The Karana Dharma should be in the Karya. But we are inverting. And then we are saying Akasa is the fundamental. So Karyasya Karana Dharmatvam. Karyasya Karana Dharmatvam iti asangatihi. There's a kind of, actually Karya will have Karana Dharma because it carries like the DNA, but we are inverting it. Then there is a problem. That is how he's trying to say, first thing, what is that Tadatmya Sambandha? What is that Tadatmya? Brahma Sattaya Akasha Rupa Vikarasya Avivakta Bhava. Akasha and Brahman are one and the same thing. Akasha is not a different reality which has come out of. Actually, everything is only Brahman, pure consciousness. This Bheda Pratyaya, this consciousness of distinctions, which are supposed to be analytical, we confuse that to be real. That is the problem. Okay? So, Akasa becomes Adhisthana, Satta becomes Dharma. Brahman is Adhisthana, the substratum. Akasa is the Dharma, it's an appearance. But we are basically confusing. And this is not problematic for a Advaita Vedanti. What he will explain to us, what he would say. Remember, my friend, it's like this. This kind of Adhyaropa, one being superimposed on the other, the child being confused at the father, That is the game of Maya, so we don't have any problem. And Brahman doesn't undergo any vikara. Akasa is not a fundamental reality, this is a projection. And then the Brahma, the Satta Dharma of the Brahman, the absolute Brahman, is kind of associated with the Akasha. And we are saying Saddharmitvam. This Akasa is Saddharmi. Akasa becomes a Dharmi, and Satta becomes a Dharma. No. Sataha Akasa Dharmatvam. Akasa is the Dharmi. This Akasa Dharma is an appearance. It's attributed. Like rope exists. It's a poisonous snake, and the poisonousness is a quality of the snake. It doesn't even exist. The poisonousness is actually an attribute we are emphasizing, we are superimposing on what actually is a rope. That much is the truth here. Now he's saying, how does that happen? He explains in the next verse, in the 64th. Nirukta Vyatyayam eva prapanchayati. This inversion Vyatyaya, and what is the conclusive thing? Sataha iti. Sato vyamatvamaparnam vyomnaha sattam to lokikaha tarkikasa vagachanti maya ya uchitam hitat. He's saying, this must have happened in a lot of fairy tales where you will have a paricharika, one of the companions of the bride. You have a bridemaid. You have a groom friend or something. Huh? You have a bridemaid. And then this bridemaid sometimes is so nicely dressed up. And if the bride is actually not so crazy about being fashionable, or she's not very obsessed with her dress and stuff like that. She wants to keep it very simple. She's a social activist or is a political leader. She wants to keep it very simple. But the bridemaid doesn't care. Bridemaid is a student. Or her cousin sister, who is the bride, she is a political leader, she's a social activist. She wears a very simple, elegant, but a very simple sari and comes on the stage, marriage mandapam. And the bridemaid, wow, wonderfully dressed. What people do, they confuse the bridemaid, who is actually a friend or a cousin sister of the bride, to be the bride. And the Vedanti smiles. You know what says? Yeah, that's what exactly it should be. If you don't confuse the bridemaid as bride, there is some problem. That is what the Vedanti. He has a good laugh. He says, yeah, that's what Maya does. Agatana, agatana, patiyasi. What is impossible to happen appears as very normal course of action. You should not get surprised. That's how it is. Then he's saying, Sataha vyomatvam apanam vyomnoho sattam to lokika. It's the Sat, the Satchidananda Swarupa, the Brahman, the pure consciousness, the absolute truth. And then this vyomatvam, it's the rope on which snakeness of the snake is superimposed. The rope appears as a snake. The snakeness of the snake is an attribute we are foolishly attributing to what in fact is a rope. Sataha vyomatvam apannam. That is exactly what logically follows. However, what happens? Vyomnoha sattam to lokikaha. What are the normal people saying? No, this is a snake and it's a very poisonous snake. Similarly, it's the Brahman which is real, but reality is attributed to what? To Akasha. Why? We can't see Brahman. We are not smart people. We don't have that intuitive smartness to go beyond it. We haven't studied Vedanta enough. We are not, let's say that those who are basic students of physics, what all we were obsessed with, Newtonian physics. And later on, somebody came and told us that there was someone called Heisenberg. There was uncertainty principle, and slowly they introduced new things, and then they put us in confusion. They brought in words like quantum mechanics. They introduced new ideas. No, And then we have a notion of reality which not as definite as it was in case of our idea of Newtonian physics. This particular thing becomes absolutely different. The simple students of philosophy, similarly, they believe in the physical reality is absolute. There is a reality which is independent and outside of the brain, and you should be able to access it. Then he studies a lot of philosophy. He says there is a school of thought, they call it anti-foundationalists. Truth per se is not independent of the mind because it's essentially a creation of the mind with the help of language. These are all constructions. These are known as post-structuralists, post-modernists in philosophy, in literature, in literary theory. A smart bunch of people, mostly continental philosophers. Of course, the Americans and the British, they're much more positivist. They think there is an independent reality. We can talk about it. They are realists, they are positivists. But the people who can really confuse you are the ones who write in very complex language, the French, especially. They make life miserable. They challenge everything about. You don't know what is real, what is unreal. Similarly, he's saying, Satta, Vyomnaha Sattam to Laukikaha. The normal guys who don't have much of an entry into Vedantic understanding, they don't have enough insight not to accept what appears to be absolutely real. They think isness is a quality of Akash, of the sky. Then he's saying, he's making fun of the Nyaya philosophers. Tarkikasya avagachanti. Don't take these Nyayikas too seriously. Or the logical positivists or the empiricists in the West too seriously. Why? They are not much different from the panwalas and the normal people in the street because they also consider what appears to the naked eye as absolutely real. Tarkikasya avagachanti. They're very sophisticated logicians, but they cannot go beyond what appears to the eye is real. How miserable. Then, condescendingly saying, Maya yaha uchitam hitat. Yeah, but that is the game which Maya plays. It makes a great logician, who is intellectually very sharp, behave like a stupid normal guy in the street who thinks whatever is available to the senses is real, and that is absolutely real. When it comes to that conclusion, the Nyaya philosopher and the normal guy in the street, they're hand in hand, good friends. They share that truth. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes what happens, you have different political parties, and the world is very sharply divided right now, isn't it? So, both on the left of the center and the right of the center, you have extremely well educated people and you have stupid people, right? And they believe in the same political ideology. The reason why they believe in that ideology, of course, is different. One brings in a lot of theoretical understanding, the other one is an emotional follower of that particular school of thought. But when it comes to have a political rally, they are both passionate and they are going to join in a demonstration, whether these are a bunch of rightists or a bunch of leftists. They have equal amount of passionate attachment to their conclusion. The Vedanti says the truth is beyond these two views. The truth is beyond this simplistic, naive understanding of reality, where whatever you see with your naked eyes, naked senses, is absolutely real. Now let's look at the commentary. It's very interesting. Mrida ghatarupatvam iva sataha vyomatvam aparnam. How does that happen? Because you see, actually the Vedanti also doesn't accept that this vyomatva, skyness, is a dharma of Brahman. Fundamentally, no. Because the moment we say yes, sky is different from Brahman. The moment we say yes, they are very happy. Why? Because there is sky and there is Brahman. Where is Advaita Vedanta? There is Dvaita. There is diversity. There is duality. But we are trying to say everything is pure consciousness. How do we make sense of Akasha? How do we make sense of Jala? How do we make sense of fire? The Advaita Vedanti has its own way of explaining these diversities using the technical word upadhi, names and forms. These are superimpositions at different levels. That is how he explains. Therefore, what he's saying, Mrudo Ghata Rupatvam Iva, the way earth or clay, there's a lump of clay, and then we give it a shape. Then we call it a pot. We call it a plate. We call it a vessel. Different kind of, we call it a diya. It's a lamp or whatever, right? Different names we are attributing. This is all one clay. It's only clay. But these names are given. The way that happens, similarly, Akasa is only a, what do you call it? A transformed appearance with some name and form of clay, the way pot is no independent reality of clay, so the way a necklace is no independent reality different from gold, similarly, the Akasa is no independent reality which is different from Brahman. It is just an appearance of the Brahman as an Akasha. Right? Simple. Therefore, he's saying Vyomatvam Apanam. And what? Desa Panichinnatva Savada Gunakatvadi Vyada Dharmaha Vikaraha Sadavastuni Mayaya Aropyante. This is Adhyarupavada. There is a rejection of diversities at an ultimate level for Vyavaharika. Vyavaharika means for the benefit of phenomenal engagement with each other, for our everyday life, we accept Akasa to be real. And what is it? This is a superimposition. Desa Parichinnatva. See, Akasa you can say is infinite, but what Advaita Vedanta is saying, but infinite means you are saying, okay, it's a very large, grand, it's kind of a spread of space. It's infinite. But then you are saying that Desa Kala Vastu Parichinna is what is the material reality. Desa Kala Vastu Paricheda Sunya is what is the consciousness. Free from the limitation of space and time and their own existence. Beyond that. And then Sabda Ganakwadi, that sound, it carries sound waves. Vyad Dharmaha, Vyad Akasa. These are qualities associated with. And then Vikaraha, these are these Vikaras, modifications. Sadvastuni in the Brahman, Mayayaha Aropyante. With the Maya, with the help of Maya, not Mayayaha, it's Maya, Tritiya case, Tritiya Vibhakti. With the help of Maya, we do the Adhyarupana. Tathapi. And then, Laukikaha, Sastra Jnana Sunyaha. What is Laukikaha? Those who are not very educated. Man in the street. Pratiti Matra, Saranaha. Whatever they see, they believe that to be real. They take refuge in sense perception, the simplest level of knowing the truth. Tarkikascha, and also logicians. Vyomnaha sattam avagachanti. Then they think satta guna is a quality of Akasha. They first accept Akasha as fundamentally real. Tad viparita kalpana mayayaha uchita evahi. Because the truth of the matter is that Brahman is real, Akasha is not. The isness is a quality or is the absolute truth, consciousness, bliss, that Sachidananda Rupa is what we refer to as Brahman. It has nothing to do with that, but that quality is superimposed here, and then Akasha is accepted as fundamentally real. Dharma, dharmino vyatyayena. We do, and that inversion. Viparitata, vaiparityena, parigrahanam, kevala maya krita vyamoho phalam iti alam. Look at this word, kevala maya krita. Because of that delusional power of Maya, there is a false acceptance, vyamoha. It's a kind of obsessive acceptance of what is actually phenomenal as absolutely real. This is the only consequence, is that kind of an understanding. I think more or less we have very well made sense of it. Okay. There's nothing more to know except that just two words that we need to keep in mind. You have Sad Brahma, then Akasatva Dharma. The Sad Brahma has Satta Dharma. We associate with it. The Akasatva is a superimposition. Now we are making Akasa absolute, then Satta Dharma is inversely attributed to Akasa. That's what he's trying to say. Okay? So, all the qualities of Akasa truly don't exist in the Brahman. Like Sabda Gunakatvam, Sabda is a sound waves move in Akasha. At the level of Akasa, phenomenally, these are all fine. Like, for example, if you ask me what kind of waves exist in the black hole, you go back into the causal form, everything gets nullified. They lose their power. Those theories don't apply there. Similarly, what we discuss at the level of Akasa, they become irrelevant. They become completely powerless. They have no relevance at the level of the Brahman. So they Mayaya Brahmani Aropitaha Brahmanaha Satta Dharmo Vyomni Adhyasitaha. That is the inversion happens. With the help of Maya, in Brahman, we do superimposition of the qualities of the Akasha, and then Satta Dharma of the Brahman, we are now imposing on Akasha. Okay? So, what is this Viparitata? What is the inversion that happens? The Dharmi becomes Dharma, and the Dharma becomes Dharmi. The Akasha Dharma becomes Dharmi, and Satta becomes a Dharma. But Satta is the Dharmi, which becomes a Dharma, and then is associated with Akasha. Now let's go to the next verse. Viparita pratitera laukika upapattim aha. Now this inverted understanding of reality, why does that happen at all? He is giving an example. He's saying, look here, this is how everything happens. The bridesmaid, this girl who is standing next to the bride, who is elegant but very simple. She's wearing, let's imagine, a butter color sari or a gown, neatly dressed but not any ornaments. Why? She's a social activist. Or she's a political leader working with people. She cannot afford to be gorgeously dressed. Bridesmaid, student, doesn't care. She's very attractive. And why that happens? Why this misunderstanding? The bridesmaid appears as bride and the bride appears as a bridesmaid. Unimpressive. Why does that happen? Now he's saying, look here. When people come closer and say, oh, so this is the bride. No. That's my cousin sister. That's my niece. This is my daughter. She is the bride. Oh, I see. Why she's dressed? Why didn't you buy her? I don't know what are they called? All kinds of funny dresses. I don't know the technical terms for it. But she wears beautiful dresses. Yeah, and then the father explains. She's an idealistic person. She's a social activist. She's a feminist, and she doesn't believe in this wasteful expenditure. And in fact, for the marriage, we are not giving any gifts. She has some program for the orphan children in this particular hostel for girls. The father explains, and people become very respectful and appreciate the greatness of these bride and the person who has chosen to be her life partner. What comes in between an apparent acceptance of the bride as a bride and then understanding that no, she in fact was the bride? Understanding. Vichara, information, proper analysis. That is explained here. Yatha vartate tasya tatha te bhati manatah anyatha tvam brahminiti nyayoyam sarvalaukikah. Yad yatha, if X, yatha vartate, the way the rope exists. Rope exists as a rope, with ropeness as this quality. Yad yatha vartate, tasya, the way the bride exists sees in fact the bride. Tasya, here tasyaha, tathatvam, brideness. How it appears, how it's known to you, bhati manataha. You want pramana, you want logical questioning, you do observation. Really? Is she the bridesmaid? Yeah, but the groom is exchanging glances with this simple looking girl. Really, I mean, why he's not looking at the bride? Actually, he's not looking at the bridesmaid, she's the younger sister. He's looking at his friend, which is a simple looking, elegant lady, which is a friend. Therefore, analyze logical reasoning. No, no, she must be. Now look at it. Now she's carrying the flagal and she's going to put it on the head of this groom. Yeah, she is the bride. Tathatvam bhati manataha. That becomes evident to us through pramana. Manataha. Through proper, whether it's anumana, it's pratyaksha, some pramana or shastra pramana. Anyathatvam. But why the bride was confused as bridesmaid? Anyathatvam brahmena iti. It's because of an error in perception. Nyaya ayam sarvaloukikaha. It's known, this is the rule. When you do not know how to correctly perceive, you'll perceive the wrong as right and the right as wrong. Sarvaloukikaha. There's nothing a new thing, it's a universal law. In our everyday lives, that's what happens. Yad vastu jatha vartate. So this is beautiful. It is a very beautiful thing. It's very simple. So what he's trying to say, that yad vastu yatharupena vartate tasya yatharupataya eva buddhihi. The way, there is a particular thing, the way it exists, if you are able to see it correctly, the rope will appear as a rope. It will never appear as a snake. Right? And that manataha pratyakshadi pramana samuthaya udeti tatha sa prama iti. When you call it prama, what is prama in Sanskrit? It's called yathartha jnana. Tadavati tat prakarako. See, tadavati, there is quality, ropeness is there in that particular state of. And then we know it as rope. That is yathartha jnana. And that is called prama. And then what you have? Tad abhavavati tat prakaraka jnana. Where actually the rope is not there. There is no snake, but you have snake jnana. You have sarpa buddhi. Sarpa is not there. Tad abhavavati. Sarpa is not there. Sarpa abhava is there. And then you confuse that as a sarpa. Reality is not there in akasa, it's just an appearance. Then you attribute. Like you have a stick, you dip it in water, it looks bent. Bentness, the bend that you see in the stick is absent. But you see that as bent. That is brahmagyana, aprama. Therefore, and then na vidyamano dharma tatra vidyate iti buddhihi yayate atasmin tad buddhi. That is the standard sentence in Vedanta. Atasmin tad buddhi. Atasmin. Tasmin means where X is there, you have X buddhi. That is yathartha buddhi. X is not there. Atasmin. Where X is not there, you have X buddhi. What is it? That is aprama. That is Brahma. Sa buddhi aprama. That is not yathartha jnana. Ayarthartha jnana. That is what is Brahma eva iti nyayaha sarvaloka shammataha. That is what all of us know. Okay? And so in Advaita Siddhanta, what he's trying to say is very simple. Yad vastu yathavartate tasya tathatvam tatha pratiyamanatva manadaha pratikhyadi pramanato bhati siddhyati. Yad vastu, whatever exists that you see. Okay? Yad vastu yathavartate tasya tathatvam. You have a rope and the ropeness yathavartate tasya tathatvam. Ropeness of the rope, brightness of the bride. Tatha pratiyamanatvam. That appears as a bride. Manataha. How do you establish it? Pratyakshadi pramanatah bhati. You have different pramanas, epistemological filters to verify that as real. Then you consider that real. Tasmena tad buddhi prama. If A is there, then you are able to recognize that as A. There is a little small boy or baby, few days, a month old. You cannot know it's a boy or a girl. But if you are just looking at the face, you are intuitively able to infer it's a baby boy, it's a male baby. Good, that is yathartha buddhi. But you confuse that as a girl sometimes. And that is aprama. Anyathatvam. And why you think that little boy is a girl? Anyathatvam, anyadharmavatvam, brahmena. Brahmena iti ayam nyayah. By mistake, somebody confuses this little baby boy as a baby girl. Atasmin tad buddhi brahma iti nyayah. When that there is no girl, you confuse that baby boy as a girl. Sarvaloukikaha sarvajaninaha sarvasamata ityartha. So what Vedanta is teaching here is very important. This whole sansara is deluding, but we consider that as absolutely real because of this atasmin tad buddhi, where there is no fundamental truth, we attribute fundamental trueness to all of it. And then when we have that sadbuddhi, we have, atadabuddhi. We have to remove atadabuddhi. We are able to remove this atadbuddhi, then tadbuddhi brahma jnana will happen. That is what they are trying to explain. Let's go to the next one. Dharmavada viyataha sadavastuni vivechana dharmavataha vyasadavastuni vivechanari ritim aha. What is the riti? What is the method of doing this vivechana? Now you have brought in a new idea. You have to do some vichara. Brahmajnana can be removed with proper analysis or vichara. Then you must be able to explain to me what is the way, what is the vivechana riti, what is the viveka, what is the method of knowing it. Evamiti. How it happens is explaining in the verse number 66. Evam sruti vicharat anyatha yad vastu bhasate vicharani viparyeti tatah tatchintyatam viyat evam srutihi vicharat. So what happens? Bring the Upanishadic insights. How do you get it? Where do you get it? You have to go back to the Upanishads. Why? Because everywhere else you will have descriptions of this reality as absolutely real. The phenomenal world is described as absolutely real, and which is confusing. Therefore, how do I reach that Brahman? How do we have Brahman Jnana? How do we have entry into that secret? You have to do Shruti Vichara. Meditate on the sentence, the statements, and the Upanishads. Evam Shruti Vicharat Prag Yatha Yad Vastu Bhasate. It's Prag Yatha. This particular part is not very clear. It's Prag Yatha. Prag means before analysis. The way sansara appears, the little baby boy appeared as a baby girl. Evam Shruti Vicharat Prag Yatha Yadavastu Bhasate. The little baby appeared as a baby girl. Before Vichara, you did a bit of Vichara, then you found it's a boy. Vicharena Viparyeti. Then when you do proper investigation, you find out, no, it's a boy. You lift the small cushioning cloth, whatever is on the body, and then you lift it off, oh, it's a boy. Vicharena viparyeti, no, it was a Brahmajnana. By mistake, I thought it's a little girl. No, it's a boy. It happens in India where you have this Mundan ceremony. So a lot of boys are given long hair. It's also, I think, there in case of Sikhs and couple of other religions. They have long hair, and then there is a mundan ceremony after some time. When the little boy is maybe 2, 3 years of age, very cute, there's no difference between boy and a girl, and he's wearing, everyone is dressing up the same. He has long hair, and people think maybe it's a girl. And then they find out, no, no, it's a boy. Vichayena viparyeti tataha tat chintyatam vyata. Similarly, this Brahman, what you're confusing as Akasha, without proper vichara, you'd be able to know the Akasa is a adhyaropa, is a kind of superimposition, is not fundamentally real. Evam ukta prakarena yad vastu shruti vicharat prak. Before you have started meditating on the insightful statements in the Upanishads, shrutyartha vicharat. What do you mean by shruti vicharat? Shrutyartha vicharat. The language is in a particular fashion, then you look at what is the meaning of it. That is the artha vicharat, purvam, before that. Yatha, the way it appears, how akasa is real. It's a blue sky. Akasat asid iti. Akasa nishta satta dharma. Akasa nishta. Ghata nishta satta. That satta dharma is, nishta means is there. Akasa nishta satta. Vritti. Satta dharma ka taya. Jnayo yad vastu vicharena. Then you meditate on it. Satta dharma is there in Akasa. Satta. Akasa nishta satta vaddhi. It gets inverted. No, no, no. It's the Brahman which is real. Akasa, it's a Brahman nishta Akasa vaddhi. That is a better way of looking at it. You get when you do proper vichara. Sadvastu vicharena, shrutehe artha vicharena. Viparyeti vaiparityena bhasate. Then you know, no, by mistake I had understood it. It's the Brahman which is real. The rest of it is just an appearance. Nacha akasa dharma satta. Akasa dharma satta is not. The dharma of akasa kintu sadeva maya kalpita brahmena. Then he's saying vyad. He's just refuting this whole thing. He's saying, no, no, it's the Brahman which Akasa appears as Vyadanamna pratiyate. It assumes the name of Akasha. Brahman alone is real. Akasa is a superimposition. Iti jnayate tataha tad vyad chintyatam. Right? Vyad chintyatam vyataha karyatvam vicharyata. Then you accept, no, Akasa is a consequence. Is a vivarta parinama of Brahman. With Akasa, they are giving us the philosophical key to unravel the mystery of this whole sansara. All this sansara, like Akasa, is a vivarta parinama of the Brahman. The whole sansara, similarly, is in fact a superimposition on the Brahman. We'll go there one by one. He will explain everything. Pratyeti jnayate tataha tad vyad chintyatam means vyataha karyatvam vicharyatam. Vyad akasa is karya. Karna is the Brahman. Is the cause of all causes. Vyada sabdena vyadadi sarva srishti jatam grishyate. I am talking about Akasha. But through the use of the word Akasha, I am giving you the key to make sense of the whole manifest reality as an emanation out of the Brahman on which everything else is superimposed. We have come to the end of the session and we'll move forward tomorrow. We'll do more interesting verses follow. We'll stop here for the day. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat. God bless you.